Howdy, folks. Welcome back to the podcast. We're going to be answering a handful of questions that you submitted in our question submission area on our website. And we've said this before, but we always love hearing the questions you're pondering, what you're talking about in your households. So thank you for submitting those questions, giving us food for thought. I also want to say thank you for those to those of you that have taken the time to leave a rating or a review on iTunes or on Spotify, or if you watch us on YouTube, if you subscribe to our channel, thank you for doing that. For those of you that are new, maybe just found us, it's extremely helpful to us if you do subscribe or if you do leave a rating or a review on iTunes. And if you enjoy this podcast, this episode or any other episode, it means a lot to us when you share that with somebody that you think would appreciate it, somebody that might benefit from it. That's really how this podcast has grown, how we've reached more people. It's grown very organically. And so we're thankful to all of those that have helped us grow the podcast. So with that said, let's get this thing rolling.
The Now That We're a Family podcast.
I feel like I'm running on a little bit of fume right now. Or I'm running on fumes right now.
That's how bad it is. It's a fume.
It's a fume. One lingering, trailing fume. I'm running on it. I tell you what, the puppy life is fantastic. It's a long-term investment, hopefully. Hopefully this guy stays around for a long time. But it's just like, I'm happy, but I'm so tired. And I feel like I really feel that way when I see myself in my sweatsuit and you in your nice colored business casual shirt and like ready to go. And I'm just like, easy. Hello. The nighttime wakings are getting to me. Elisha helps too. And it's way shorter than like a postpartum season for a baby, but it still makes you tired waking up every couple hours.
Yes. Per usual, you've been working your face off. You do. I've said this actually recently I think in a Top 5 Tuesday, you do kind of have one speed for life, for all things pertaining to life. And that's, what did I say? High octane or full send? What did I say?
I can't remember what
whatever
you
your
said,
speed is,
but
it's
it
like,
was one gear. Did you say gear. High gear or something?
Yeah,
or
I don't know. Anyways, you go all out in everything that you do. And I'm grateful for that because I like all the things that you do. So I'm always grateful when you're going all out. But at times it does result in you running on a fume.
Running on a fume.
So yeah.
It makes me really, really happy though and we aren't just going to talk about our puppy for the next, 5 episodes. But when I see like him like passed out, like so exhausted, because I just see that in our kids. Like they just like, our kids like live life so hard and then they just pass out like so exhausted in their beds. And I love that concept of like, you just live a lot of life and then you rest and recharge. And I don't know, I feel like it's how our family does things. So it's been sweet to see just like, I don't know, the kids, us.
Oh yeah.
Adding a dog, we all do stuff at the same level.
Yes. Yeah, it has been sweet.
But anyways, okay, so
well, you don't like it when I do this, but I'm going to do it anyways. And that is,
okay.
I'm going to read 2 questions as one question. Okay?
Okay. Have I gone on file for not liking you doing that?
I don't know. Well, because it is, you want to give each question its own answer, which is valid. But I'm going to try this. And if you want me to separate them after I ask them.
No, that sounds good.
So one person says,
whatever you want.
They say, I know you have shared before that Katie gave Elisha an ultimatum during engagement that she would not marry him unless he entirely gave up alcohol. I was wondering if you could share more about your thoughts on ultimatums in dating relationships. Thank you. And the other question I was going to piggyback.
this question too.
Oh, really? I was going to piggyback another one.
Okay.
What do you think the most important factors are to consider in dating when discerning whether or not to marry someone? I'm in my mid-20s and in my first serious relationship and find myself fearful about the ways my boyfriend falls short, but struggle to know which fears should give me pause and which are just part of being in a relationship with an imperfect human.
Well, I mean, you're really wise for being 20 years old as far as like you considering that, because it's true. It's like some things we're all going to fall short in.
Yes.
So what are the big things? And I don't know what you would say to that, Elisha? I mean, I know I have my thoughts, but
yeah, because I'd love to hear your thoughts on the ultimatum thing. I know, maybe I should have broken them into two questions. But they kind of go together, don't you think? They pair nicely.
Well, they do pair nicely, but they are two different questions. I guess they flow into each other.
They do, because like, what are you looking for? You know, like what are non-negotiables? In other words, and this that you would establish ultimatums for.
So this is what I would say. What something that really helped me is picturing children. This isn't just someone you want to, fall in love with and live your whole life with. What really helped me clarify what was an issue that I wanted to, fight on, and it was non-negotiable for me, was, okay, this man is going to be raising my children. Children were a big part of getting married for me. And so it's like, what is he going to be teaching our sons about alcohol? What's he going to be teaching our sons about media? Or daughters, or, what is he going to be teaching them is appropriate with anything. And so I think number one, you're thinking, is he submitted to the Lord in that he's willing to take counsel? He's humble. He's not proud when someone does correct him in a work environment or in a sport field environment, or maybe it's your father correcting him or his father correcting him. Does he just brush it off, get all mad, and never change? I mean, it's okay if someone's ego gets involved. That happens. We're all human that way too. And you want a real male that's willing to go head to head with another alpha. That needs to happen too.
But you don't want it to be a consistent part.
But you don't want it to be
who they are.
Yeah. It's not like you want a weak-willed husband, that's a pushover, but you can tell when it's like a sin issue or someone's teachable. And that was something that really stuck out to me with Elisha, was he held his ground on certain things. And then on other things, he was willing to take criticism and even undue criticism and be like, okay, well, I'm going to consider this and take it to heart. And I saw that from a variety of different people, and I really respected him for that. And I've just seen that more and more and more. So, I mean, that would be primary, because you're going to be following this guy to the ends of the earth. And so if you can't trust that he's going to seek the Lord, that he views the Bible as, the number one source for all things, for all truth, and then he doesn't take counsel, then you're going to have a hard time getting input into your marriage when you do disagree on things. You aren't going to be able to go to scripture when you do disagree on things if he doesn't hold God's word highly above all else. You can't seek the Lord when you disagree on things. So that is like its own chunk. And then the second thing I would consider for all the secondary issues are children. Are you comfortable with him doing these things once you have children? And that's for me where I knew what bones to pick and what bones to not pick.
Yeah, I think that when you do consider your future children, it does clarify things that are non-negotiables, where you're kind of like, okay, I'm not willing to have my future children, be under the authority of this man or under the influence of and the authority of this woman, because when it's just the two of you, it's so easy for you as a grown adult to overlook things that might be a big deal in the development of your children. But you could say, well, you know what? Whatever. If it's a guy, like, yeah, he's kind of lazy, or his temper is kind of an issue sometimes, or he doesn't seem to have self-control, maybe with eating or with alcohol, or he's not. Maybe he's got like a lust issue. They're like, oh, it's not really a huge deal. Like, I'm fine. Like, he's battling it. But then you consider your children and you consider him being the leader. And I think it really solidifies, like, wait a second, like, because then things like, I guess like an annoying laugh or social quirks or other things that you could point to as being like, actually, that's not a character issue. That's not a forming of my children's, soul issue. Then it becomes a lot more clear, like what you're willing to slide on, or just preferences like, whatever, dressing style, or like where you want to live, or, just what you want your evening routine to be like. Those are all personal preferences. And then I would say when I considered non-negotiables for me, when we were dating, homeschooling was probably the first and foremost for me. And that was probably because I had, dated or talked with other girls where that wasn't, they didn't want that. And so it was a huge and it took me a while to realize, like, no, I'm like, this actually is a non-negotiable. And again, I think that those are the types of things that it's funny because the world or your church group or your community, friends can give you the hardest time about what you think is a big deal. But it's like you're the person marrying this person, right? Potentially. You're the person that's going to spend your life with them. And so they can't tell you, hey, that's not a big deal, if it's a big deal to you. And then likewise, if they see red flags, I think you need to be discerning to that, because we all know that infatuation and love and romance blinds us to a lot of things that could be true. And I don't think either of these people are coming at it from that perspective, like they're, just caught up with emotion in a relationship. But I do think you need to be sensitive to people's concerns and fears if you're dating someone, because of the blindness of romance and of infatuation, obviously.
Yeah, and it's easy to think of everything as a big deal. And so that's why I kind of broke it into those two categories. Because like when Elisha and I got married, we had theological differences, and they were pretty strong, actually. But because of that first piece, knowing he was seeking the Lord, he was the Lord's, and I was as well, I was willing to, and he was willing, both of us, to get married on those grounds. I've seen a lot of couples break up over theological differences that it kind of bums me out, because I think they were two incredible people and they would have come towards each other. I've just seen that over and over and over when couples love each other and are willing to work through it. But maybe like parents got involved and made a really big deal or something like that. And that's something I really want to consider with our children, is like, okay, what is the line on either side of the ditch that's like really worth fighting over for something like that? Education, maybe someone valuing education more, someone valuing education less. I don't know. Often I hear a lot of couples break up over the pursuit process. And so it's like, they aren't pursuing enough, or she's not responding enough, or you know what I mean? And different people have different speeds with which they pursue and respond and stuff like that. And so to me, that would be something where I'd be like, well, wait it out. You have a whole lifetime to like learn how to pursue and respond to each other. Like that is a lifelong journey. It's not like everybody hits the perfect pace of chemistry right off the bat.
Right. As far as like those scenarios where it's like, he only called me twice in the first week, like he's clearly not interested, or I want him to pursue me more, or like I'm not getting any affirmation from her, she seems totally disinterested. Yeah. So it's just kind of like, well, okay, like that's just, those are styles that do not dictate how a marriage would go, or how even the rest of the dating relationship.
Voteberg Music Academy is different than other music lessons because the whole family can learn together. So instead of paying for each individual to learn music, which Elisha and I know from past experience can add up to thousands of dollars a month that our parents paid for private music lessons, families are able to learn by instrument. So we love seeing mothers and daughters and fathers and sons and siblings all learn guitar together, or all learn piano together for less than $40 a month. So if that sounds like something that you are interested in, we have a coupon code listed in the description box to get you started for 10% off every month that you are a part of the Voteberg Music Academy community. Yeah, it doesn't mean someone's not interested or they aren't just as invested as you are. Some things take time to work themselves out. So I do think we need to be hesitant when the two big things are in line to just like go chopping people off willy-nilly when it's like a great quality person over petty issues, because all humans will have petty issues, and obviously it's you have to live with them for the rest of your life, so it's your job to determine what those are for you. But I would just think really big picture, think 10 years from now, and don't get too hung up on little maybe annoyances, because I tell you what, whatever you feed in your brain is what, like whatever track you're replaying in your mind is how you're going to think of your one day spouse. So any human has annoying traits about them. And if you replay those 10 years from now, it didn't matter if you had an incredible dating experience, you will have a bad marriage. Or if you're, choosing to play those things now in a dating experience, 10 years and you decide to marry this person, you can start to play a different track and 10 years from now have an incredible relationship with that person and see everything good about them. So anyways, what was the part about the alcohol part?
Well, she was saying that was an ultimatum you gave, and if you could share more thoughts on ultimatums in dating relationships.
Oh, yeah.
Which I would consider like,
and the ultimatum came from a very strong fear that, you have all your leverage up front when you're dating. And so I wanted to be confident, like I knew I had my leverage then. Once you're married, you married the guy or you married the girl.
Yeah.
And so I wanted Elisha to know, like, no, this is a huge deal to me. I have a huge fear with this. And if you're not willing to do this for me now, then you aren't going to be willing to do it for me then. So do you love me more or do this thing more? And you can only make decisions with this as I am comfortable.
Yeah.
And it could be like that with media. It could be, you know, something with video games or, you know, something where you're just like, maybe your fear is ungrounded, but it's still something that you just want to clarify. Like 5 years into marriage, I don't want you being like, we've talked about this.
Yeah.
We have to be very clear. We've talked about this. We've made this decision together. You agree to this. And I didn't feel comfortable entering into a marriage where my husband hadn't agreed to only drink alcohol under the situation where I was comfortable with it, in the circumstances where I was comfortable with it. Does that make sense? I'm like saying this all wrong.
Well, the ultimatum was that
But
I
the
gave it up.
ultimatum
And
at the time was, you will not drink alcohol because I am not comfortable with it.
Yes.
But I did leave the door open a little bit. And I said, if I become comfortable with it, I will let you know. But you can't, you know.
Yeah.
Why are you smiling?
That's just funny to replay that season in our life. And, you know, you said something really quick. You said something in passing. You said you were confident that I was pursuing the Lord, I think, or submitted to him. And I think that you need to look for tangible habits and practices that, I guess, support those words.
And fruit and
like
friends and parents who a lot of things confirm that.
Yes, exactly. And so, again, like obviously anybody can go to church every Sunday and not be a Christian and not have a vibrant faith, not be sincere in their faith. But that is a good like indicator. Is he going to church every Sunday? Is he in God's word on a regular basis? Does he have it on his heart? And same goes for a gal, obviously. So I do think that there are actual practical things that you can look at when it comes to their habits, like you said, their friend group, their peers, their influences, what they're meditating on. And then, so, we talked about like what are non-negotiables, what are not non-negotiables. I do think like if something bugs you, you bring it, that's the time to bring it up, is in dating. And so even if they don't stop doing something that bugged you, at least you get to talk about it ahead of time. And he knows that you don't appreciate it or that you don't, you prefer it, and vice versa, versus getting into marriage and then bringing up all those annoying habits, kind of like why you're like, that's never fair. And I think that happens, where a guy, this happens all the time. Like guys get married and then they're like, why are you wearing that? Like to their wife, like, why are you wearing that? I don't like that. I'm not comfortable. That's immodest or something. And she's like, like what? Like I've literally been wearing this on every date. And then I think the same goes the other way.
Well, that did happen in our marriage, actually.
I know. I think it happens a lot.
But I don't think it was that annoying. I think what happened was when you were dating, you thought it was great. And then we got married and then I was yours. And then you didn't think it was great anymore.
That probably happens a lot. Yeah.
I think that happens a lot.
Yeah.
I think that every child you've had a bigger opinion on things like that. Mm-hmm. And I have too. I think it's part of a maturing process. And
yeah, I think that like you get more protective probably as a husband. I think of, just when we were dating, just the things I became a lot more, I think, protective after the fact when it came to you being places late at night, the environments that you were around. Yeah, I certainly changed on that, and you were gracious with me, which was nice.
Well, it's flattering when your husband is protective. As much as I would give you pushback, it's flattering. I think it's sweet.
But I do think it is another thing, and you did this graciously with me, from the gal's perspective. If you're a gal and there's a guy and there's things that bug you, at least for me, like I did want to grow. I did want to change. I was in a growth mindset. And so when Katie would bring up things like movies that I watched, it wasn't like a defensive. I was like, oh yeah, like, okay, you're right. Like that's probably not the best thing considering what I actually want to be pursuing with my life, or in my life. And it wasn't that case with everything that you brought up. Obviously, there were some things where I was like, well, no, I remember, watching sports with my family, and that was something that really bugged you. And I was like, sorry, I don't feel bad about this. Like I grew up doing this with my dad and my brothers. I don't do it a lot at all. But it was like a family vacation that we were on, or I think it was Thanksgiving. You came up for Thanksgiving before we were married, and we all watched a football game, and it really bugged you. And I was glad you told me that.
Like such a terrible person.
Well, no, I was glad you told me that, but then it's not like I was like, okay, I'll give that up for the rest of my life. But I was glad that you and I think you were glad that you stated how you felt about that.
Yeah, it's funny because something that I appreciated about Elisha, though, was he didn't want a TV in our home. So that was something for me that I wasn't that worried about it in the long run,
Yes.
And you brought up stuff with me, too. Like, I'm trying to think, but you definitely let me know, like,
I had, like, when we were dating.
Yeah, how I annoyed you, or in public, how you didn't like how I did certain things, or you were pretty vocal too. So.
Sure, yeah, that's true. Because we would come back from some public settings, and I'd be like, "Hey, don't correct me like that in front of people,"
yes.
And that was a great time for you to be like, "What's your deal? Get over yourself." And I was like, "No, I don't want you to do that. Like, you can correct me after the fact, or talk to me about it afterwards." So I remember a lot of conversations.
Yeah, there were a lot of things like that, which is so healthy to have before marriage, instead of being like, I'm going to overlook it. And then you go into marriage as that kind of wife. And we all know that's the wrong kind of wife to be. But it's like Elisha was able to communicate that before. So it didn't take me off guard in marriage. And I already was a lot more bridled in public and knowing how to respect Elisha in public because he was communicating that when we got married. Like it's an ongoing thing, learning how to respect, what to bring up, what to not bring up, how to be a safe place for your spouse. I feel like that's something you learn more of with each year of marriage, because stuff that's not a big deal to you will be a big deal to them, and vice versa. But I feel like we've made grounds in that area before we got married. Don't you think?
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, and obviously we've continued to grow in that, because you can't check all those boxes. I mean,
I was still really bad at it.
We certainly. Oh no, I think you were great at it. I think I don't think you can check all the boxes before you go into marriage, as far as like, oh, we've talked about all the things that could potentially annoy us, or get under our skin.
But I would say, like, something that's a great sign, in my opinion, is like Elisha. We talked about, okay, how is he living out his faith, like in practical terms? And he read a ton of theology books at the time when we were dating, and they were all in a vein of theology that I completely disagreed with and thought was terrible. But what impressed me was he was wanting to learn more about God. I think it can be a great, and I mean, since then I've come to read a lot of those books and appreciate them after I threw them out our first year of marriage. I bought them all back.
Yeah, but that's a true story. She did throw away probably like 20 books.
So sad. But yeah, I think that there is an element of, it wasn't just that. I mean, I was on a minimalist kick too.
Yeah, right. Yeah. They were the first to go, though.
Yeah. Definitely didn't need these. Kept our 4 copies of Sherlock Holmes.
Yes, exactly. We had 3 copies of the Scarlet Pimpernel, still do.
Yeah, 3 copies of Jane Eyre. So anyways, do you have another question?
Sure. Let me see here. I'm going to pull this thing up.
I guess, like, look for signs, not necessarily perfect agreement. I think sometimes people look for perfect agreement in marriage, and you just want to be like aiming the same direction, I feel like, more than totally agreeing on stuff.
Yeah, that's the nice thing, because throughout this pursuit, you get to establish what you believe, what you are firm on. And when Katie said she strongly disagreed with the thread of theology that I was going down, she wouldn't have called any of it heretical, right? She wouldn't have said like, oh, you're going and this is cultish, or this is not Orthodox Christianity on any level. Like, you wouldn't have thought that at all. And so it's not like, oh, if you're, an evangelical Christian and he's a Mormon, you need to know that there's distinct differences there that are.
Well, one's not a Christian.
That's why I said that. If you're a Christian, he's a Mormon.
I know we have Mormon listeners, so I know that's like a strong thing to say. But I mean, like, believing that Jesus is God, not just God's son, believing he's the only way to heaven.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And a part of the Trinity is a foundation of our faith.
Well, I think that's helpful. And you go to, like, just even with that right there, you go to like the historical Christian creeds, and you can establish a lot of your faith. Like, who is Jesus Christ? Like, well, first off, who is God? The Godhead 3 in 1, and who is Christ? And then you really get to establish for yourself the non-negotiables, and then they'll be very apparent. Like, the more clear you are on your own convictions, then yeah. So anyways, I was just saying that to say, you said you totally disagreed, but not like it was a totally different religion. It's not like you viewed what I was pursuing.
The same faith.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. here you go. This is definitely for you, Katie Babe.
Okay.
Hi, Katie and Elisha. My question is for Katie. And it is, have you had, I always forget how to say this, diastasis recti after having babies? Have you found it necessary to take steps to heal your body between babies? I see you're an active person, and it's so inspiring to see you being that way after 5 kids.
Oh, that's great to hear you say that. I am blessed to be around a community of active women, and I feel like I have to keep up. There are some that just really go hard and really inspire me with how they stay active.
You do more than keep up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's sweet of you to say. So, diastasis recti, I have had it. I have not had it severely. Like I could never fit a fist or something in between my abs. So I have friends, I have relatives that have very severe diastasis, and that was not my experience. So I usually have between 2 to 3 fingers around my belly button where my abs have separated. And I'll be honest, I've never gotten a really strong core back like I did prior to children. A lot of that does have to do with, I take it easy. I learned how to do breathing exercises. There's a ton of them online where you basically just learn how to hold your core in when you do core exercises so you aren't spreading your abs further. I think a lot of women go back to immediately doing crunches or something like that. And I don't actually think crunches are terrible, but unless you know how to hold your abs in, you can actually blow them further apart. So just doing the research is helpful. I did it after, after Leon. I had, maybe 1 or 2 finger separation. I was feeling good a couple months after we had him, and I went and did that SWAT challenge. And it was like, how many push-ups can you do in a minute? How many sit-ups can you do in a minute? And of course, I'm like going all out, and this is my first time doing, workouts I was used to doing but this time I'd had a baby. And the next day I had this bulge in my stomach, and I was like, I just ripped my stomach apart. And like, I literally did, because I wasn't trying, I didn't know how to hold it in. So I was just doing what I'd done before, but there was a separation. And so that kind of led me on my journey. But that's it. I know this is not of general interest probably, so I'll just keep it a little shorter because there is a lot to talk about on this. Because of my time distance, I always get my stomach closed within like 3 months of having the baby. I feel it's closed. I can do regular workouts. I've never gotten it rock solid. I think partially due to the time between kiddos. We've never had like a long period of time where I like get back to doing guy push-ups or am doing long planks or things like that. I always like now do push-ups on my knees, and I modify almost everything with my core. But I feel like I've never had any issues with like my pelvic floor, stuff like that. So I'm really grateful for that. And I don't feel like the only baby I felt like I really needed to take a break after for my body's sake was Lauren's. Because that was really unhealthy pregnancy for me.
That's right.
I blew out my back pretty bad.
Right.
I broke my tailbone. That wasn't the pregnancy's fault.
That was a bummer. It
was a bummer. It's the worst part of postpartum, sitting on a donut pillow because my broken tailbone. Yeah. And I really, but a lot of that had to do with me not taking care of myself and working out during pregnancy. If I had, I don't think I would have had that kind of need to recover. I was just, all blown apart after that one. So it took a while to like build up my abs and build up my back and all that stuff.
Sure.
That's it.
Wow. Whatever you've done, I think is impressive. So you'd write a book about it.
Write a book about it.
Okay, how about this? I'm a new mom and thinking through the question of posting pictures of my kids online. Would you be willing to delve more into why you chose to stop posting pictures of your kids? I resonate with you, but I have extended family who is very active on social media and will sometimes post pictures of my kids. It's not a huge issue since it's, just like to their friends and followers, but I would still love to hear your whys behind your decision.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think for us, it was just because we so much of our businesses became creating content to, market for our businesses, and so we quickly fell into the trap of, oh man, our kids are the best marketing tool, for some of these things. And so at least I did, where it was, no, you didn't do that.
I don't think you blatantly think that.
No, I said you fell into the trap.
Yeah, it's kind of like, oh, this will be so fun. People will love this. I think like people will love this. But
I love it. Like I see my kids do something
just for views is why we would do stuff.
I don't think ever. I can honestly say I don't think we ever did that. But I do think the kids would do something awesome. It's on, we video it. We're like, oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Like let's put that in the vlog and so on and so on. And then I think as they started getting older, it just became apparent that's like, man, we don't want them ever feeling like they're doing something. They don't like, I want them to truly be able to live their life and them be so confident that we're taking joy in them, not what their trick off of the trampoline or their, new tune they learned is going to do for our platform or for followers or likes. I don't want that to ever be a question in their brain. And so that was just clear. And it just made our family life like so much better. Like I can't even recognize the old family that we were, and we loved it at the time. But when we were like, we're not pulling cameras out in the house. Obviously, the first step was getting rid of iPhones, for us. And so we couldn't document everything all the time. But then even putting the vlog camera down, we're just like, we're not doing that now in our home. It's just improved the quality of our life and the enjoyment of our life. Like just being so present with our kids is so fun. If anything, we need to get better at capturing moments for future memories for our family. Like we need some just point and shoot cameras because I want the memories for my sake.
Which I do. I think you don't see that till the end of the year, but because they just do one photo album for the year.
It's so special. I just sit there bawling my eyes out when you get that album and I look back through our year of these candid, low quality photos that you captured throughout the year. I'm like, oh my word.
It's been really sweet. And so that is something that the kids do ask for us to take pictures of them doing stuff, doing a trick, having a moment. And we take the picture, but it's so fun. They know, and we know it's going in the album. That's why I'm taking it. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they ask, can you send that to Papa Johnson and Mama Nisi or Papa Joe and Misa? But it's they know we aren't being like, oh, that's so cool. I'm going to share it to, this bigger audience, to the public. And I think why that's important is some kids are going to not open up. You want your kids to open up to you and be a safe place for them. And some children will shy away from that. And then some children love the limelight and they want you to post everything about them. And we have some of those kiddos too who love the idea of getting likes and comments and stars for their performances from the public. And I don't think that's really healthy either, to feed that appetite so early. It's never a great appetite to be feeding. Mm-hmm. And so,
and it's also made it easier that we've just stopped. So we don't have our personal Instagrams. We obviously don't post on the Now That We're a Family Instagram. So the places that we do share about our kids, obviously we'll mention them in passing here, but is in our weekly newsletter. Mm-hmm. We'll share funny stories. We don't often share photos. We're not against sharing photos. If there's a fun photo, we'll definitely share it in that email. But because that does feel like it is more just friends and family. It's a much smaller list of people that's seeing that.
Well, and I like that there's no likes on it or comments on it. Some of you guys reply to the email and it's really sweet to hear from you. We love when you reply to the email, but it's not social media. Mm-hmm. And there's just something different about social media where it's this flyby. I think a big thing for me, we were weaning ourselves off that just because it wasn't unhealthy for our home life. So weaning ourselves off from showing our kids, I guess. And it was such a big part of what we did. And our children are such a big part of what we do every day. It was a process,
right? Learning
how to even do that. And then at a certain point, I remember someone commented down on a vlog something about the kids that was pretty negative. And I remember thinking, Elisha, I do not want our children to be 12, 13, 14 years old and reading what people thought about them.
Right. Yeah.
That's a hard enough season.
Yeah.
To go back and have already negative comments about you or positive comments about you shaping who you are. I don't want people to have the opportunity to say their opinion on our children or for our children to find their opinion. So that was just a really big reason. Like, I don't care if they say they're cute or they say, they don't like them. I didn't want those opinions for our kids in a library for people to find. And so I think that was one of the biggest reasons or for me, where I was like, okay, no more, like really no more.
Yeah. The safety thing was somewhat of it's not like we've had close calls, like scary situations. I know that's an issue for a lot of people, is the safety factor. Again, we just have never been like real big, like I don't know. There is something to be said though, I think, with that, especially just like on open source, social media accounts, having a whole array of your kids' photos. But it's I don't know. We have most of our friends, like this person's saying, it's not like they're trying to grow a following. They're not, and I think that's how most people use their social media accounts still, is very much for their mom and their grandparents and their aunts and uncles and their cousins to see what's going on in their life. And to me, that doesn't seem like it's, detrimental to the child's development or self-esteem, because it's the same thing like in our family text threads. Our families are so big that it's basically like a social media account. They're in our family text threads. But
I do think it is healthier. It's not a public forum. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it's closed. They know it's going to aunts and uncles,
right,
and that's all it's going to.
Yeah.
And so, I would encourage you to get a family text thread going,
right,
over social media. Way beat social media.
Yeah, I know we've talked about this. I know this is like beating a dead horse, talking about, kids and social media or just social media addiction in general. But I just found it so peculiar that on NPR, like a week or two ago, they were talking about, they had some lady on, some social scientist lady on that was talking about teens and social media. And I was like, oh, I'm sure this is like, I've heard all of this. But it was interesting how she was talking about how all these recent studies we're talking about how it's now young people being upset at their parents for the conversation I'd always heard was like parents being like, how do we get our kids off of social media? Like what is Snapchat? Do you do Snapchat? Do you Snapchat? Whatever. They're doing Snapchat. They're doing Instagram or whatever. TikTok. How do we get them off of here? And then this most recent one was, they were talking about how kids 10 to 13, just hate how they come home and they don't feel like they can just share good news with their parents ever, because it's like if they get a good test on their whatever, a good grade on their test, or they do something good at school, it's like their parents immediately pull out their phone, take a picture of it with them, and they share it to everybody, or they're excited because they get to sit with their parents on the couch. These are the scenarios she's talking about that people have talked about, and they're like, oh cool, I get some time with my parents. And they put a movie on, and then the phone comes out and it's a selfie with their kid, and they're snuggling up for a fun movie night with, my 11-year-old, and kids are over it. And I'm like, wow, no joke. And I don't want my kids to ever think that way, where it's like, oh, hey, do you want to have a daddy date? Let's go and have some, father-son time, or, daughter's father time. And then we get to the coffee shop, they get their hot chocolate, and dad's both taking his phone out so that everybody knows I'm doing a daddy-daughter date. I certainly don't want my kids to ever feel that way. If I take them on a date and we're doing a daddy-daughter date, I don't want it to be the situation where my daughter's so stoked that she gets time with daddy, but then the first thing I do when we go to the coffee shop and we get the hot chocolate is I pull out the phone, say, okay, let's take a photo, let's share it to everyone, let everybody know that I'm doing a daddy-daughter date. I just want her to think that I'm doing it for us, truly for her, and same with my boys, and same with you, and same really when I'm with anyone. And again, I'm not saying I'm mad anytime somebody pulls their phone out to capture a moment for the group, but if it's a consistent thing, and then your kids are starting to pick up this pattern where it's like, oh man, we can't actually do there's always an alternative motive here, or in their mind, right? That might not, your intentions, like you said, might be great. You just want to share it with your in-laws that live across the country. But it might not come across that way to your kid.
Yeah, I think parents are really well-intentioned, but kids feel used. And the truth is that kids are being used, and so that's why they feel that way, because it's actually accurate. But it's not that the parents are necessarily trying to do that. When I look back at us sharing our kids, we were stoked about sharing our children. We're so proud of them and wanted everybody to see what they could do. But yeah, when you look back, it's kind of like, yeah, well, they were our children and they were making us look good, to a certain extent. And like, we don't want that to be what our children feel like their childhood was. And so, yeah, it just was a lot easier to be like, hey, if we want to keep up with friends and grandparents and all that, then we're going to send stuff to them directly. We don't need a social media platform to do that. And just keep it off of social media. That said, when the kids get around aunts and uncles and grandparents and stuff like that, photos are taken of them all the time and posted to social media. And we've never made a deal over that.
Yeah.
Again, I think because like safety wasn't our primary concern. It was more like just our children's childhood and protecting that.
Right.
If you were really concerned about a safety issue or something like that, then obviously I would communicate that with whoever was taking most of the photos. But it's a posting free for all when we go to relatives' houses sometimes.
I think something too, again, this was something that we started doing even later on in our social media era, was even if you are capturing the moment, you don't need to post it right then. I think that if you want to capture that moment, that's fine. And if you want to, for your friends and family that follow your account, share the recap of the weekend, I think that's fine, because it's not like interfering, I think, with the moment that your kiddos are having, I would say, as much. And I think that can be kind of there's something that's just so discouraging, I think, from a kid's perspective, when you're at the park and you're having a great time. And it's like, okay, I'm going to video you go down the slide, and then you're just heads down, hashtagging and posting and commenting, captioning, whatever. That's just, I think, a little bit discouraging from a kid's perspective.
It's so sad.
Yeah.
It is so sad.
Yeah.
Like, I felt it was sad in the moment doing it at a certain point once our kids started getting older. And then now, like, on the outside of it, I'm like, oh man, that's just hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, what about one more question, Katie, babe?
Okay.
Are you up for it?
Yeah, let's go. We could do some fast ones too.
Oh, you want to do some okay, Katie, can you please share ideas for protein-rich meals and snacks? What has helped you not gain much weight in pregnancy and lose baby weight after? Thank you.
Well, that's actually really easy. I will link down the videos that I've already done on this down below in the description box.
Okay. Another person says, hey, I was wondering if you have any information on long-term food storage ideas. I remember you talked about it once, but I couldn't find the video. Thanks.
That video is up on our YouTube channel, our second channel, right?
You know what? You might have done one. We also did one that I think went out in our email one time.
It's in the blog.
It's on the blog? Okay.
So should we include it in the email? Should I drop it down?
Is there a link to it?
There's a link to it.
Let's just share the link. Yeah.
So I will drop it down below. We have behind this right here all of our 5-gallon food storage buckets with all our dry goods. I love having that. It is so awesome. Just to know that we could survive for 3 months if we needed to. I also use it as a rotating pantry, so we do use rice and sugar and oats and all the things out of there as well. Einkorn, it is a working pantry, but there are some things that are sealed up for very long-term use just so we never get too low. And it's been a big peace of mind. It's like having a little savings nest egg in the bank where you feel like if everyone's freaking out because it's an election year, I don't have to rush to Costco. I'm good. I don't need to join the fray. So that's been a big blessing.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll link that below.
Yeah, so we'll link it all.
Okay, so maybe one more then. You really are making these quick. This is awesome.
Well, we already have resources on these, so.
Okay, I'm a mother of 3 small children. Our oldest child is 4.5 and recently hid my husband's car keys under a rock in the backyard. We asked the kids if anyone knew where they were, and they all saw us searching for the keys for 3 days. On the evening of the 3rd day, my 3-year-old daughter found the keys and brought them to my husband. My question is, how do you teach children the severity of their actions when they're so young and don't understand that when they're doing things like this, they have their serious real-world consequences? Had we not found the keys, we would have had to get the car towed to the dealership and have a new key made, costing $1,000+.
So this is a 4.5-year-old that hid the key?
Mm-hmm.
Oh man.
Yeah.
That was kind of a big one. What would you say?
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if I've got an answer to that or an opinion. Because at 4.5, because I think that
4.5 years old is old to be doing stuff like that.
I think so
we
too.
have a 4.5-year-old, and like there is no way.
Like there's a chance that they can. I think there is a chance they can do something like that. It's funny, and they forget that they did that for sure.
Yeah.
It sounds like this wasn't the case. Maybe the 4.5-year-old.
It might have been. Maybe he hit the key and he totally forgot where it was. Like it sounds like the 3-year-old ended up finding him.
Right.
So, I mean, it sounds like he was kind of messing around, which I can see happening.
Yeah.
And he forgot what he did with them.
Maybe you have like a prankster, what is it? Yeah, a prank environment at your house. I'm trying to find the balance on not making that too much of a part of our family culture, because I'm a trickster. I like playing tricks.
He likes scaring people is what he does. So I have my husband plus my children all trying to kill me in the dark with their terrifying.
That's not true.
Hiding.
Okay, this is the funniest. This is so funny. This happened like 4 nights ago.
This is good. This is good.
So our bathroom door is, how do I explain how our room lays out? Like, it doesn't matter. So I thought Katie was in bed and I was going to the bathroom.
Just set the stage real quick. He had already scared me that night, like half out of my wits. Okay. You scared me upstairs when the house was dark. I like clawed at the wall, like freaking out. So I was like, you know what? I'm tired of this. I'm going to scare Elisha. Because the thing is for as much as Elisha likes to scare people, he is very scareable.
Oh, I am the most jumpy person that I've ever been around. Seriously, I scare myself more than anyone. Honestly.
That's true. That's true.
But so there's this like half wall that separates the kind of like the closet that leads into our bathroom from our bedroom. And I thought Katie was in bed, which I think she was, when I was going to the bathroom. So I quietly, I turned the lights off. And because I thought you were distracted, like reading or something, and all the lights were off. So it was a sliding door. So I like opened it so quiet, and I was going to get down on the ground and crawl all the way up to the bed and like, touch your hand or something, or grab your hand or grab your foot at the end of the bed or something. And so I like sneak to this half wall, and I'm like snug up against the half wall.
So wall meaning there's a door opening you can go through. It's a full wall.
Sorry, full wall.
It's just a wall.
It's a wall.
It's just a wall.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Got it. Like the closet. So like there's no door to the closet, our closet entry.
Yeah, you basically go through the closet into the bathroom.
Anyways, and then I'm like listening, and I'm like, is she still in bed? Like, I don't think she's still in bed. And I peek around, and the bed's empty. And I'm peeking around the corner, and I'm like, man, I was like, I bet she went upstairs. I was like, even better. I'm going to go to the closet right next to the bed and scare her when she comes down. And I start walking into the room. No, you don't
start walking. You sprint.
I sprint to the room. And Katie screams 6 inches from my face. And she was on the other side of the wall. And she didn't know that I was on my side of the wall.
So Elisha went to the bathroom. From my perspective, he went to the bathroom. I got out of bed. I was like, this stinker, I'm going to get him. And so I hid in the drapes that we have hanging on either side of the open closet. So we close the drapes so you don't, so they're basically the door. So I was hiding in the drapes with my head next to the wall, and I'm waiting for the sliding door to the bathroom to open, and I never hear it because Elisha's trying to scare me.
I opened it with such stealth.
So I think he's still in the bathroom. So I'm just waiting, and all of a sudden, I think Elisha's in the bathroom, and this like jet blast flies past me at the speed of light in the dark, and I scream because it freaked me out. And then
I screamed too because I was convinced that she had gone upstairs. That was wow.
And both of us, like, I come out of the curtain and I'm like shaking, and he's shaking on the ground.
I don't think I wasn't on the ground, and I might have been shaking a little bit, but I stayed on my feet.
And we're both looking at each other like, how long were we sitting on opposite sides? A long time.
I was just standing there so quiet on that wall, and that whole time Katie was so like 4 inches from my face. I don't know. That was a fun moment. Anyways, I don't have an answer. That is tricky. So if you've got like somewhat of a pranky environment, it's probably a good time to start.
Well, I mean, letting them know, okay, this is a really severe situation. We never touch the keys. Like, you didn't have the responsibility to handle these. You never allowed to touch the keys again, or it becomes a discipline issue. if it was on purpose and he's keeping it from you for those 4 days, that is a huge issue in terms of deceit. And just that's like almost a heart issue. I feel like the fact that his parents are stressed out about something and he wouldn't admit to it unless he's just terrified of telling the truth. So I think there could be a ton of stuff going on here. I think you just need to explain the severity of it to him. And kids do stuff like that for sure, where they hide something and they totally forget about it. And we have that happen in our home, but it's never this deviant, like on purpose for extended periods of time. You know what I mean? Like while we're all looking, I feel like the child probably forgot where he put them.
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of like, hey, we don't play with things like car keys or credit cards or, you know, my 3-year-old was walking around. We couldn't find the credit card for a few hours and it was in his back pocket.
Yeah.
So
I think he forgot.
No, not the 3-year-old. The 3-year-old is guilty of pretty much everything.
Okay. Wow.
That was a deceitfulness issue. Because he knew it was in his back pocket. And actually his oldest, Lucy, was like, I'm going to go check his pockets and make sure he doesn't have it. Because we thought he might be a culprit. And he'd already said he didn't have it. She went out and searched him and she found it.
Wow.
So that actually, he ended up getting in trouble for that.
Yeah, that's not good. But then also, like, kids will break, we've had kids break a window, in our house, which is expensive to fix. And they were playing, they were being a little reckless. And so it's a good learning opportunity. But that is, I think, a part of just development and growth with kids, especially with the whole, the hiding things, joking. Like my kids still oftentimes will be joking and teasing. I'm like, okay, I got to go into a call. And they don't get like the joke's over. And sometimes it's always like the saddest thing when you like have to like, okay, we were all joking and having fun. And I like need to put my foot down and be like, no, like no more fun. Like daddy's going to work, and it like totally sours the fun, but that still happens, I guess.
It's part of a social learning curve. Like they have to learn how to respond. What is a severe issue? What is not? And obviously that's how they learn. This child seeing that you and your husband were super stressed, searching for this, they're going to pick up, okay, this was a severe situation. Just like the kids throwing golf balls over our fence and the window broke. And okay, they realized by daddy and mama's responses and seeing how long it took to fix, okay, this is a severe issue. So I do think that's an element of just going through childhood. You learn what is a big issue or not based on the real world ramifications that you see. And unfortunately, most of the time those are happening to your parents and not to you.
Yeah.
But they still can learn through that. They learn through seeing your pain because your children want to please you. And so it's not like they're going to be like, oh, that was great. My mom and dad are stressed out and depressed. I'm going to do that again.
Yeah. Right.
Your average child is going to want to please their parents and there's going to be a mutual love there. And so they're going to learn some things aren't funny. And that is a tough situation.
Yeah, what a bummer. What a bummer.
That's incredible. Your 3-year-old found him under a rock. Yeah. I'm just really impressed.
Yes. That's honestly a fortuitous ending.
I feel like they were all in on it. They knew that's the hidden rock. That's where the stuff goes under.
Yeah. Folks, thank you all so much for listening. We're excited to talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.